This is a nightly news report. Today we are entering 1980, but let us take a look back at 1979. Now, in 1979, we have went to Yugoslavia with the NYT. Now today, in 1979, we are going to go in Yugoslavia. Now Yugoslavia, which is a southern Balkan nation, is home to more than 6 republics, constituent communist republics, under the central government of Joseph Broz Tito. Joseph Broz Tito, which is now 87, has rose to prominence as the leader who has won Yugoslavian freedom since World War II, kicking out the fascists and the Ustaše, the Nazi collaborationist government of Yugoslavia. Now, in 1979, he is 87 years old. He has outlived most of his contemporaries from the time, such as de Gaulle, Churchill, Roosevelt, of course, and of course, Joseph Stalin. Now today at 87 years old, he's still kicking and he's still doing work in the parliamentary system of Yugoslavia. Mostly it's under his rule, but he is the big macho man that has pretty much kicked out the fascists in 1945. Now today we're going to do a special report on Yugoslavia. Today was a bit stiff, but we're getting somewhere with this. So please be patient, and next week the new guy would pretty much be formed in. But anyway, ladies, gentlemen, and NB, it is your time to go to Yugoslavia in 1979. This has been a nightly news report documentary update, and I hope to see you next time. And remember, learn something. And we'll talk about the history of Yugoslavia some other time on the documentary side of the ENN network. But until then, enjoy the program. Alright, let's go from the top. Belgrade, Yugoslavia, 1979. In each of the 6 republics of Yugoslavia, there is lavish estates that function at times as nerve centers for the country. These are the times when the occupants of an 87-year-old man, who smokes enormous Havana cigars, and who is said to have continued working at a pace considered even extraordinary for men half his age. These are the writings of the following dispatch that have ended 2 years ago on the 2-year tour of Belgrade, correspondence for the NYT, 1979. He is Marshal Tito, President of Yugoslavia for life. He has ruled the nation for 35 years, and, while his principal World War II components and contemporaries, Churchill, Roosevelt, de Gaulle, Stalin, are, well, pretty much gone at this point, he shows no sign of yielding his power, and I do believe they mean gone as in all of them are dead, because Churchill died 60, Roosevelt died before World War II, de Gaulle died about a couple of months ago, and Stalin died in 53, so he shows no signs of yielding his power. Right. Refusing to designate an heir, he continues to shuffle personnel at the top of the Yugoslav League of Communists, or Communists. A year ago, he instituted a system of electing for a 1-year term of presiding officers of the party president to relieve the president of some of the daily administrative work. The first to be chosen was Branko Mikulukic, the chief of the party of the Republic of Bosnia and Herzegovina. He was recently replaced by the 1-year ending by next October by Stefan Dorogski, 60 years old in fact. He has held various high party posts as well. Should President Tito die during the President and the President leader's terms in office, Mr. Dorogski would be the successor of the party leadership at least for the rest of the year. Until then, however, there apparently is only one Marshal Tito. That is Tito, and Tito is Tito. That is Tito, and Tito is Tito, said senior officials of the party Central Committee recently on being asked about the possible succession. And behind Tito is a large historical background. Of course, the president continues to enjoy an outpouring of respect from the public. When he returned in September from the conference of the Third World Nations in Havana and the Non-Aligned Movement, it was estimated that more than 1 million people of this city of 1.3 million stood for hours in the blistering heat just to cheer him as he returned. Milovan Djilic, the dissident author who once was the president's close associate, recently recently likened what he described as the Tito call of the personality of that of Mao Zedong of China. And it gets really bad when you mention Mao. It's more like Mao than Lenin, Stalin, or the others, Mr. Dubala said in an interview. But he is more intelligent than Mao ever was, and I hope that is not racist. At the same time, Mr. Digilas criticized the president for the impact he has had on Yugoslavia. The system is slowly rotting. He said, because no one has had to make ultimate political decisions for years. So, I mean, to go off track here, when the time comes and Tito does kick bucket, when he dies and does kick bucket, there will be no one that has experience like Tito to run country. The mechanism of collective leadership of both parties and government that Marshal Tito introduced, with the declared aim of assuring an orderly transition and giving each republic an equal say in ruling the country, continues to be shaken by change. Since the death in February of Erdogan Devaneshignik, President Tito of Yugoslavia himself. Karadzic, the World War II partisan leader and Communist Party theoretical, long considered the president heir apparent. No one and no other person has emerged in that role, because Tito was the sole partisan and hero of World War II, kicking out the fascists in 1945. Instead, at least half a dozen of top party officials and state officials have either been demoted or even shifted to different posts, and scores of other high bureaucratic jobs have been shuffled and even reshuffled a couple of times to keep it, well, I would say, not in malice, but to keep it kind of diluted for when Tito does kick the bucket. Earlier this year, 4 members of the state presidency who held the same office in the party were stripped of their party functions. At the same time, Stan Dulek, often considered as possible heir as president, was removed from his post as Secretary General of the party, as Tito was supreme leader. To many Western diplomats, the constant shuffling resulted in chaos. Party officials, however, explained that the president is merely engaging in ridding the bureaucratic of self-seeking careerists, as being in politics is not the correct self. But speaking to him with awe, some Yugoslav officials said that the leader, who in 1948 successfully resisted Stalin's efforts to bring his regime under Moscow's control and under the Eastern Bloc, and has begun to develop national communism. He has recently scored a series of personal triumphs from Havana to even Moscow. He is credited with having managed during the conference of the Cuban capital in September to prevent Fidel Castro from shifting the Third World movement closer to the Soviet Union and into the non-aligned camp. Last spring, he reportedly received no assurances in Moscow from Leonid Brezhnev, the now Soviet leader of 79, that the Russians would not interfere in the internal affairs of Yugoslavia. Access to Middle East oil is sought from Tito. In addition to this, it is said that Marshal Tito has assured his country during 2 trips to the Middle East of continuing and expanding access of the oil and gas supplies of Iraq, Kuwait, Libya, and Algeria. At home, meanwhile, towering problems still remain. The inflation rate is estimated at nearly 30% of the year, and imports are running $6 billion higher than exports, making a trade deficit. These and myriads of other problems appear to add to the often bitter relations and the ancestral frictions between the Serbs, Croats, Slovenes, Montenegrins, Macedonians, and Bosnian Herzegovinians who make up this now multinational nation, including the Albanians of Kosovo and the Muslims of Vojvodina, somewhat Serb Vojvodina, Russian Balkan the Balkans is very, very messy, okay? He sits in many meetings of the collective presidencies that are held at least once a week, and he is known to smooth many difficulties with long, intimate conversations in his villas. His wife Jovanka is no longer with him. She lives in a separate villa in Djerdinje, the Belgrade suburb where he also lives when he is in the capital. Rumors persist that they have been divorced, but these are denied by the Yugoslav officials. The questions of Yugoslavia without Marshal Tito casts a long shadow over the country. It is discussed endlessly in diplomatic communities. He is no longer getting younger. He is 87 years old, and one day he might actually die. A Yugoslav journalist who has traveled with Marshal Tito says, he seems to draw strength from the adulteration, the crowds, and the endless days. But he must die, for he is mortal, and not a god of men. And when Tito does die, I hope the Balkans does not fall into, well, chaos, but it is the Balkans. We started the 20th century in the Balkans, now will we end it in the Balkans? This has been a Lightning News Report. Hope you enjoyed, hope you learned something, and thank you for tuning in for the multiple errors that I had. So anyway, on the 20th, I hope you enjoyed and I hope you learned something. And next time I'll see ya. Ladies, gentlemen, and MB, learn something. You guys are going to go hang up my clothes. And Happy New Year. We're going to make that video now and edit this for Saturday. New Year's present. There you go. Learn something.